Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. All right, thank you, Mr. Producer. We are back, and I'm joined by the one and only Tammy Goen. Tammy, welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. Great to be back. Thank you so much.
So, Tammy, you're the owner of Lifescape Wellness, and what is that?
Well, I call myself a self-love and happiness coach for generally highly sensitive people. So it's a platform for coaching and energy work and any kind of healing to help highly sensitives to navigate life and feel better overall. So I use a variety of different techniques, but yeah.
Okay. Now, for people who haven't heard your show before, what is a HSP?
HSP, highly sensitive person. So highly sensitives process information really, really deeply. So I mean, life is pretty much the same as with everybody else, except that everything seems to matter a whole lot more, or we just we're stuck on things a lot more because we really process them and what seems like overthinking to a lot of people. So because everything is just taken in and considered, we see all sides of things. It's sort of like being like a super absorbent sponge, everything coming in all the time and paying attention to all of those things instead of being able to weed out, oh, I'm just going to pay attention to this right now. Or, I'm going to let this go. And that doesn't work quite as well for us. But at the same time, it can be really helpful because we pay attention to like all the little details and when things don't usually, slip by. So it can be really helpful in a, work situation or safety situation or something like that. But we also tend to have stronger emotional feelings.
Yeah, I was going to say that you guys are mostly empaths, aren't you?
Yes and no. I mean, there's a whole spectrum of sensitivity, and there certainly is the empath. And then there are some that, maybe have higher sensitivity on certain levels, but maybe not, across the board. And then there's some that are just like, you take an inventory and you're like, check off every single one and go, oh yeah, that's my life. So there's definitely a range, but it does tend to include a higher, heightened sense of energy and feelings. So we can feel emotions really strongly. It doesn't mean that we express them a lot or like over express. We can, but we can also be more along the line of like kind of shutting down because emotions have been, not our friends. So, in some cases, like growing up, or you've learned to just like, oh, if I share that, then people think I'm, doing too much or too this or whatever. So sometimes we can actually be kind of more shut down energetically. It doesn't mean we're not, or emotionally, we're not feeling those feelings, but some express them quite intensely, and then some just are feeling them intensely.
Okay. Now, do some HSPs use medication?
Well, it's interesting. What the research has shown is that if HSPs have a really challenging childhood, then they tend to not develop coping strategies as well. And so they are definitely more prone to, say, depression and anxiety, maybe choosing substance abuse or things like that to cope. And those who have a really strong, supportive childhood actually have more advanced or better, more effective coping strategies as they age. And so it kind of really depends on what that initial, life looked like. But there definitely can be a high percentage, and it actually, there's a higher percentage of HSPs who seek out counseling and coaching just because they're having such an intense, experience, and they realize, oh, maybe it doesn't have to always be this way. And so they'll be, more likely to reach out, and because they can take, absorb everything and see everything from different places, they can really benefit a lot from counseling and coaching.
Okay, I got a million questions for you, but I got just one more before we get to your topic today.
Yeah.
Would you say most HSPs are introverted or extroverted?
Good question. About 30% are actually extroverted. So it's not the same thing as being introverted, and it's not the same thing as being shy, and it's not being, just not wanting to be with people, antisocial,
Okay.
not wanting to have anybody around because we actually like really deep connections. So it can seem that way, but yeah, 30% or so are extroverted. And then there's actually a subset called high sensation seeking HSPs. So folks that really like to put themselves out there and really experience things, intensely. And at the same time, they're highly sensitive. So they're really taking all that in. So it's easier to get to that level of overwhelm because you just going or saying, oh, let's try this and let's try this and let's travel over here. And suddenly you're like, whoa, now I'm completely overwhelmed. So yeah, there's a whole range of, like not every HSP is exactly like another HSP.
Right.
They process things in a similar way, but there's definitely a big range.
Okay. I know we got a great topic, but I just got to know, just bear with me, just two short ones. Do you develop this as a kid? You're born with it? Can you get it as an adult? What do you think?
We are born with it. It is a
Born with it.
genetic trait. And you can, if you're aware and looking for things, or if you look back and go, oh, okay, yeah, thinking of your kids, maybe you can almost always tell, from day one. I mean, they're just more reactive to things, more sensitive, but they can actually even, there's indications in the womb in terms of activity. So yeah, it's a genetic. We're born with it. We're just wired this way. That's the term that I like to use. It's sort of like being, left-handed, right-handed. We're just highly sensitive, or you're not. And if you are, you've always been that way. Now, experiences in your life can exacerbate some of the challenges, make it more difficult. Like I said, with the ones that, have a rougher childhood, or they're really just not understood, supported, whatever, then that can be more challenging and more apparent maybe, and maybe have more struggles. Depending on what, trauma or various things happening can definitely, affect that more. But yeah, we're born that way.
Okay. All right. And then I swear this is my last one. Is the biggest challenge for someone with HSP, is it isolation? Is that the end game if they don't get help?
It's an interesting thing because we really like alone time, and we need it. We have to have, actually, they say like 2 hours of quiet time by yourself every single day.
Wow.
Not very many people can manage that, but and then a whole day on, once a week to do that so that you can recharge. But so it's really important to have that, and we kind of thrive if we can have that. At the same time, it is easy to isolate. So like, actually, a lot of us really appreciated the way things ended up with the pandemic, where you're like, oh, I'm home alone and I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have to go out and socialize. So that can be really, beneficial. But at the same time, we do sometimes need a little extra push to get out, especially if we're HSP and introverted, to get, it's like, okay, wait, no, I need some socializing. We just have to choose the right types, because usually we don't like really big, crazy, loud, environments. We like one-on-one or, small group stuff outside where there's, lots of open air and we can commune with nature and that kind of thing. But so it can be something like, especially if an HSP is really feeling depressed or unsupported, they can like over self-isolate just to kind of get away from it all. So there does need to be a pretty good balance.
Okay. All right. Well, today you're gonna talk to us about energy and the HSP. So my first question is, how do highly sensitive people to HSP, Mr. Producer, if you're not paying attention, and how do the HSP people experience energy?
So again, like everything else, we tend to experience things more intensely. But in terms of energy, we do tend to be more aware of other people's energy, the energy of a room or a situation, our own energy. Of course, sometimes we can tune that out because we're also caretakers and we're trying to, please people and take care of other people. But we do tend to be more aware of that energy. Actually, if you don't mind, I can tell one of my favorite stories.
Please. Yeah, I'd love
when
to.
I was about 15, and I don't know what had been happening, but both my grandmothers and my mom were in the family room, just kind of hanging out. And I'd been there. My sister wasn't there. I'm not sure why, but we kind of, finished up what we were talking about. I said, well, I'm going to go hang out in my room for a while. So I left. And as soon as I walked in the door of my room, I stopped. And I started looking around because I felt like something was off. Had no idea what it was, but it was really strong to me. And I said, okay, what's going on? What's off? And I took inventory on everything. I'm like, everything looks okay. I don't know. So I kind of just sat with it for a minute. And then I looked over and I had this old style stereo cabinet thing that had room on each side. And I had a couple little figurine things that I always kept there. And I just looked down and noticed, because I was very particular, two of the little figurines on there had traded places, which is like, who cares, right? But it was my room, and my sister never bothered my stuff, so she wouldn't ever go in there for any reason. So it was just weird to me, right? Not like distressing necessarily, other than I could feel something was off. And I sat and I said, okay, just let it go. It's not a big deal. It doesn't mean anything, except my brain is continuing, right? I'm like, yeah, but how in the world could that end up happening? And what, I didn't, did I forget something? No, I didn't. So finally I'm like, forget it. I'm just going to go say something to my mom. She'll think I'm weird, but whatever. So I walked back into the room and like dead silence, and they're all just staring at me. And she's like, what's up, Tam? Like, well, I know this is really weird. So I explained the whole thing, and they just busted out laughing, all three of them. And I'm thinking, okay, well, this is interesting. Great. And so my mom had been talking with them previously about how sensitive I was, and explaining how I paid attention to everything. I noticed everything. And they're like, oh, well, it can't be that intense, She goes, no, I could change some little thing in her room and she would know. And so it was a test. She was actually wanting to show my sensitivity to my grandmother's. And, ultimately it was all in fun, and it was just, I was going to ask, in a supportive way, they weren't saying anything, but still it was kind of that like, oh yeah, I'm the weird one,
Did it make you feel different?
It did. And again, I felt really very supported, by my family, but not necessarily understood. Right. So it was just kind of a quirky thing. And, for me, it was real. But so anyway, experiencing that, just anybody else would have just walked in and they never would have noticed. And maybe the next time they went to pick that up, they would have gone, did I put that there? Or just not even noticed, but I just like walked in the room and I felt that. So we can feel energy much more than a non-highly sensitive person would. And then the other part is that we can take on other people's energy. So that's really important, to learn how to set those boundaries, to be aware energetically that you're not, taking on something that's not yours.
It's a great story, and it's a great example, and it really kind of teaches us what it is. But can you talk about the other thing too, like how you can take on other people's energy? And what is in back? Is that a door in back of you?
It is.
Okay.
No,
not at all.
Okay.
I was just looking at it. It's an interesting shape over there, but pretty neat. So how do you take on other people's energy, and why do you have to be careful?
Yeah. So because we are sponges, we do tend to just absorb things, and if we're not aware, if we're not conscious of it, we can just like walking into the room and going, oh, like I'm feeling this. I didn't choose to do that. I wasn't conscious of that. It just, I felt it. So when it's people's feelings or their energy, it's easy for that to just be sucked in, just like everything else that's in that sponge. So if we're aware, then we can establish energetic boundaries and be really clear. Okay, this is me. This is everything else. I'm not okay with this coming in. But we have to be really aware of that, right? So sometimes we're feeling something. You're like, I don't have knee pain. I don't experience things like this. Is weird. And then you find out it's someone that you're close to, or that's next to you or something. That's what they're experiencing. So we can have that kind of like adopting that energy, just because we're so, it's like being a sponge, but also like being just like open to everything, not having those filters. So that stuff can come in without us, being aware. And then there's that piece of being caretakers, people pleasers, always wanting everyone to be happy, not only with us, but in general. That we want everyone to just be, why can't we all get along?
A fixer. You want to be a fixer.
Yeah. So if we are really in tune that way, and not as much as taking care of ourselves, then all of that kind of stuff can just be sucked in. And the next thing you know, you're going, oh wait, is that? So I teach people a lot to ask, as frequently as you can, if you're having some kind of challenge, is this mine? You know, when you're having some kind of energetic or emotional reaction, you're just like, okay, hold on. Is this me? Is it really about me? Or is this maybe something else that I've just picked up? So that can be, you know, pretty strong.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Now, I would assume that a, a a big thing that HSP people go through is the feeling of being overwhelmed.
Yes.
Can you tell me about it? And if is that true?
It's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons that people find me, one of the biggest reasons that people find me, because again, when you're taking all that stuff in, if you don't have the reserves to handle all of that, because you're trying to fix a lot more things than the non-highly sensitive, you're trying to pay attention to all of these things, and everything is so so intense that you know the compassion and the like the world, you know, the stuff going on in the world right now. I mean, it's really intense for us. So we have to be able to set those boundaries and to really take care of ourselves. And so one of the things is, if you think about your nervous system as having like a baseline, and say the average person, you know, here's your baseline, so you can fill until it gets up to here, and they're like, oh, okay, wait, enough, I need a break. But for us, we start up here, and so you can only put so much in there until you're just like, wow, you know, wait, way too much.
And it's about learning how to have that balance where, you know, hey, this is enough.
Lower that, calm that nervous system. And if you think of having like a bucket of, you know, if you've got a bucket that everything could fill, you can only have so much before you know, overflow. If you can empty that bucket more, by calming the nervous system, so you're like, oh, okay, now I'm ready to handle, you know, all these things that are coming. And you can do that for a longer period of time, or with that being less, you know, intense. And the overwhelm piece is just that there's so much all the time. You know, one of the things that we hear all the time as HSPs is like, just let it go, don't worry about it. And we always say, oh yeah, that'd be nice.
It'd be nice if I could do that, but it's a little tough.
Do that for me. Because we you know, hold on to things a lot, and everything's important, and so our bucket gets really full. So we really have to work to take care of ourselves, so that, you know, a couple hours a day, if you could do it, or, you know, at least some alone time with you when you're not taking care of, you're just being, you know, recharging yourself, emptying the bucket, or charging your positive bucket, if you will. It's super important. But yeah, we get very overwhelmed because there's so much data that we're, you know, focused on. And after a while, you're just going, I can't focus on any of it right now because there's just too much. You know, I can't. Just
can imagine.
There, so.
Yeah, well, you give us, you know, you're painting a great picture so we can understand. Very helpful. So we talked a little bit about what to do with it, and you know, some energy and modalities that help. Can you go in a little further, a little deeper with that?
Yeah, because one of the nice things is, because we are so sensitive, a lot of things can, I mean, we can have a downside, like medications or things like that. We often don't need as much, you know, dosage, because it affects us sooner. So we have to be aware of things like that. But because of that, if we do engage in energy modalities, we tend to be very receptive to them, because we can handle things that are really, notice things, be aware of, experience things that are really subtle. And then we tend to be very open to all these experiences, to energy, to, you know, emotions, all of that we're open to, but especially the energy piece, then we can be really, it can be really helpful for us. So whether it's things like, you know, craniosacral therapy and chakra balancing and Reiki,
like Reiki and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I kind of just combine a variety of those to see what the body's looking for. But something like that can work really well for highly sensitives, because again, they're very open, energetically open, not just, you know, consciously like, oh, okay, I'll give this a try, which is, you know, helpful, but energetically open to that, and energy can flow really nicely. And then there are things like EFT or tapping, which I also do, which is kind of combining an energetic framework with emotions or physical pain sometimes, or, you know, traumatic events or whatever, and combining those together to get that to release, so that your system is opening up the channels and letting things flow freely. So those tend to be very well received by highly sensitives.
Okay. All right. And now, Mr. Producer, you get some instant feedback. I know we don't have much time, but we can do one, maybe two. Okay, you got it, buddy. So you got some fans want to talk to you.
Great.
So Megan in Dallas asks, what are some activities HSPs can focus on when they get too overwhelmed?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Good one, Sam.
Yeah. So if you think of, I just need to calm down, what works for you on that. So it really is specific to each person, but it's usually things like something creative, because we tend to be very creative anyway. So some kind of, art project, or, painting, or creating music. If you're, a musician, making music, listening to music is really good too. And things like walking in nature, we tend to be very connected with nature or animals. Really spending some time, communing with the trees or with whatever you have around you and those animals. Reading or listening to really uplifting podcasts or movies, or nothing that's going to trigger you in any way, just something is going to be super positive and uplifting. Sometimes it's taking on a new hobby, something that you can really put your mind to, that will tune everything out, something that you're like, oh, this is really, really fun and exciting.
Yes.
And can captivate you. Yeah. So yeah, the things that, and things like yoga can be really helpful to kind of recenter. And then meditation and mindfulness techniques of any kind are super helpful. Any of those things that you can do on your own for at least part of the time, so that you have that alone time to decompress, is really good. But yeah, pretty much, exercise is really important to help you just cope in general, and you've got the right kind of endorphins and all of that, and you help your system. If you're trying to calm down literally, like at that moment, for some that works. For others, it really needs to be something quieter and more introspective maybe, or something will just help you, kind of tune out.
Does lavender help?
It can. Yeah, there are a lot of essential oils that can be really helpful. And again, music, hot bath, something that you can, if you think of, being extra sensory, perceiving everything, anything that you can do to take care of your senses. So even like burning a really nice smelling candle, you got the ambiance of it and the scent, and then the feel of the water on your skin, or something else, putting some kind of like a salt scrub or something like that, or just lotion that you like, or so yeah, scents and something visual, something that you can feel, anything to just immerse yourself in something really soothing and that's self-care based, is definitely very helpful.
Okay, understood. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Mr. Producer, can we fit one more in? All right, good. We got one more.
We have Victoria in Atlanta, and she asks, when you say an HSP needs to recharge, is this something that can be done with extra sleep?
Oh, that's a good question.
That is a good question. And actually, it's the two-part answer on that, because one thing I haven't mentioned before is that sleep is super important for HSPs. Really important to be able to get at least your, not sure what it is for you specifically, but 7.5, 8. Some people need even more of really good quality sleep, because you do need that time to physically and emotionally recharge. That, the typical reason that we're sleeping, right? So we can process and heal and recharge and that kind of thing. So it can be helpful if it's something like, I just need to shut out the world because it's too intense, and I'm just going to go sleep for 3 hours. And you do that, frequently in addition to your regular sleeping. Eventually that might not be the most healthy, direction, because it's more of an avoidance.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you are just feeling totally wet, because we can get in an environment and all of a sudden not only feel overwhelmed emotionally, but we can get really exhausted.
Yeah.
It can just be because, if you think of a time that where you were crying really, really hard, or you just had some emotional thing that you went through, and afterwards you're like, wow, I'm wiped out, right? You have that emotional wipeout. So sometimes you just do need that. You're just like, wow, I just need a nap. And you go and you sleep for an hour and you're like, oh, okay, that feels a lot better. You just want to watch to make sure it's not just like, every day I sleep an extra 3 hours, because then I don't have to deal with the world.
And you're not up until 4 in the morning too, right? So you're
Right.
sleeping for work, and then you just do it again. It's a cycle.
Right. Yeah. Or even if you get your 8 hours at night and you're still needing the 3 hours during the day. But
It turns
as long
into a
as it's-
distraction, you're saying?
Yeah, if it's like I just need to get away from the world and I don't know what else to do, then it can not necessarily serve you.
Yeah.
But if you're listening to yourself and once in a while, like, oh, I could use a nap, go for it, because your body probably needs it to have some more recharge time.
Gotcha.
But it's important to have a lot of other techniques available that you can de-escalate, recharge with, so that you don't have to turn to just sleep. So, it kind of depends on the intent and how that's looking for you, but it can definitely be, don't ignore that. If you're like going, you're just like, wow, this is a really busy week. And you get to Friday and you're just like, I don't know if I can finish my work. And if I don't have like a little break here and have, I just really want to sleep for an hour, then it's really great to listen to that so that you're
All right.
paying attention
Guys,
to the body.
I've been speaking with the great Tammy Goen. And Tammy, why don't you give us some closing words here? And then once again, please tell us how to get a hold of you. Thanks for the information. Thanks for your honesty, and really interesting. A lot of people wouldn't come out, and it's very brave to talk about this because it is something that people need to learn about. And, like not everyone's the same. Some people, have some things that we really don't know too much about. And having these dialogues, I think, helps out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been great to be here and help kind of spread that word. And I would just say, if you are highly sensitive, picking the right types of techniques that help you with that de-escalating and calming. There are some, actually, we don't have time for that. I was thinking I could probably do a little demo on how to, create those.
We can do it next time.
Emotional boundaries, but yeah, we can do that. So, learning those things and really listening to yourself, honoring yourself because you will have needs that are different than those who are not highly sensitive. So just honoring that. It's like, oh yeah, I remember I am wired this way. So therefore, this is how I take care of myself. And if I don't, then I'll be like if you don't put on the oxygen mask and you try to help everybody first, what's going to happen? You can only do so much and then you're done.
Right.
So,
Gotcha.
So honoring that is just super important, whether it's energy or, anything else that you're experiencing as a highly sensitive. And when you do that, when you honor, and you have the right tools, then it can be just amazing. Last time we talked about, benefits, and I mean, it can be so helpful to you and make life so much more rich if you're not, mired in all of the challenges of it. So.
Gotcha. And so that's go to, I'm sorry, go ahead. How do we get a hold of you?
Yeah. So if you go to Linktree, so linktr.ee, and then / my name, which is TAMMYGOEN, and all of my resources, all of my ways to connect with me, my website, I mean, all of that kind of stuff is on there. And there's actually a link to an inventory if you're curious, if you are highly sensitive or someone that because it's really great to print those off and give it to somebody else, either to explain yourself or to see, if you can support someone else that way. So I've got that on there, and then just some, stress management tips or various things on the Linktree.
All right, great. Guys, that's Tammy Goen, and we will be right back. Thank you, Tammy. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.